What we're going to talk about today is Nelson Piquet Jr. because our friends at Inside Electric did a great interview on him, and we're just going to dissect a little bit of it because there was a little bit that he said was quite interesting. And it sort of links actually to an interview we did with Oliver Turvey quite recently, which will come out in a magazine further down the line. But what Piquet said, which was interesting, he said it was a mistake staying at Next TV for as long as he did. And I thought that was interesting. And the main thing, Jack, that kept him there was loyalty. So when we spoke to Oliver Turvey and we asked him, what is one of the main reasons why you've stayed at NIO since the end of season 1 to now? And he said loyalty. And, you might want to question those loyalties. And maybe Nelson Piquet Jr., Jack, is now questioning whether he should have been as loyal to Next TV as he was back in the day.
Well, yeah, I think had he stayed at Next TV, which is now NIO, I'm not sure if he'd be too happy with how his car is performing. But I think, yeah, thing is, he when he jumped to Jaguar, he actually had a decent run of form. I think when he joined Jaguar, and in season 4, after like the first four or five races, he was top 5 in the championship and was not far off the lead of the series. But then he had about 6 mechanical problems and dropped to 10th in the championship or something like that in the end. And so he could have been a championship contender in season 4. It's just that there were other things stopping him in his way. So I think that he was right to move because then he still had that competitive angle. But then season 5, he just didn't have that. He actually had a run of bad luck as well in terms of technical problems in season 5. But no, I mean, he is one of the drivers that I do miss from Formula E the most. But I mean, I might have a few biases here and there, but still. But yeah, I'd love to see him back in Formula E at some point, either in a competitive car, because the thing is, I don't think he has lost all his pace. I think there was just too many problems going on around him at the time.
Yeah, so he signed up for Extreme E, so he's part of the drivers' club for Extreme E, so we might see him back there for one of the teams doing that. So he has signed up for that. But what he said is after he won his title, Ed, in season 1, is that he did have offers. He had offers on the table. He said, I can't remember who it was, but he said the only 2 I can really remember was Virgin, which made sense because they had Sam Bird, and, Alguersuari was sort of not interested, I don't think, or was more interested in his music career that was up and coming. And so they had Fabio Lima in London, so they needed a driver, so they went for him. And apparently Venturi also went for him as well. But as he said, that loyalty, he felt, well, this team got me the championship, worked hard. We're all the same car. Because that's what he said. We all have the same car, so there's no reason why we can't win a championship. We just need to put it together. And once they did manage to put it together, come Long Beach, basically that was the turning point when the team moved from Team China Racing to become Next TV. That's when it sort of put together, and that's when the run happened for him winning the championship. So it was interesting that he turned down the chance to go to Virgin or possibly Venturi. Probably Venturi was probably a good one to avoid, you could say, but Virgin, that could have been a good move for him.
Yeah, I think it's easy to forget just how much of a career what's the cul-de-sac, really, a career cul-de-sac that Piquet had sort of found himself into, that after he left Formula 1, he ended up going to, I think, NASCAR or NASCAR trucks, I think, ended up getting into fights and stuff. And so Next TV, or Team China Racing as it was called back then, was really the only team in Formula E that really took a chance on him and sort of believed in him. So you can sort of understand from that point of view why he would show so much loyalty to them after winning the title with them.
Because he did do well. Like, he was the first Brazilian to win a NASCAR race. I think it was on NASCAR, whatever he was in. He won rallycross events for what he was doing once he left Formula 1. So he was fairly successful, which was good.
Yeah, it's very versatile.
So, and probably why he adapted so quickly to Formula E when he came there. But then, Jack, he was like, team went backwards. Like, he said, we didn't take 1 or 2 steps back Next TV. They took like 5 or 6 steps back. Obviously, they made that double motor, the twin motor system, and the car was extremely slow. It just didn't have any efficiency either. It was overweight, and that's when the frustration comes in for Nelson Piquet Jr. And we're speaking now about Nelson Piquet Jr. coming back into the series. But if we were going to say where will Nelson Piquet go, he's going to go to a midfield team probably, or a team towards the back that needs to move forward. And straight away, the frustration was there because he's not in a race-winning car. So even though, as much as we'd love to see Nelson Piquet Jr. back, and I'd second that, he'd be frustrated if he had to go to a team in the midfield because he was frustrated about how quickly the team fell back.
Well, yeah, I think I think if he did come back now, he wouldn't have a guaranteed top spot. And say, one thing that has just popped into my mind, because we've been discussing it a lot over the last couple of weeks, maybe the Scuderia punt, maybe sign up for that and then see how that goes over a season. If it doesn't work out, then well, he gave it a shot. But I think, I think the thing is we haven't seen the proper Nelson that we saw in season 1. We when the car went, but when the car's there, he is like proper right at the front. He can do anything, as we saw in season 1. And the thing is, he was so efficient with getting his car further in the race to do the car swaps as well. So it's there. It can be done for Nelson. It's just that he needs the car. And yes, I just said that Jaguar season 5. I mean, that was a write-off, and Mitch won the first race that he wasn't there for. But still, I still think that he's still got that pace somewhere. And so, fingers crossed, if he does come back in, then I reckon that he could fight for these top 10 positions like he used to.
He said basically, so I've got it down here. He said basically, NIO or Next TV made so many steps back that even if they made 2 steps forward, right, the rest of the field was still making those steps forward. So, being able to catch up was very difficult. In an interview, though, I still go back to this, and I asked him this question when he moved to Jaguar, and he didn't really give me an answer, but I sort of expected it. But I wanted to hold him accountable for it because he said in season 3...
Hold him accountable? What, is he a war criminal?
Well, that's what you do as a journalist.
Yeah. Okay.
So you hold him accountable in terms of, he said to me at Monaco, NIO in season 4, Next TV, we're going to be winning races, we're going to be fighting for podiums. The things that we've done to move forward, Jack, has been incredible. And then he moves to Jaguar. So then I collared him once he moved to Jaguar. Well, why did you move to Jaguar then? You said to me, NIO, we're going to start winning races, we're going to start moving forward. And he went, well, the only sort of thing that he sort of told me is, well, things change.
Well, yeah, I think I think Jaguar were on the rise. They wanted to get a big name in their thing. I'd actually heard from a source that kind of works down in pit lane on the World Feed that Sam Bird was the one that was off to Jaguar about a few days before it was announced that Piquet was off. But yeah, those were those were like the 2 big names that were going at it for the seat at Jaguar. But yeah, I funnily enough, it came up on my recommended the Monaco interview that you did a couple of years ago, where he said that NIO were going to we're going to fight for podiums season 4, and well, they did. They got Oliver Turvey on a podium in Mexico. But yeah, I think, and maybe in an alternate universe, that maybe Nelson Piquet Jr. had a decent season there. But the thing is, we just don't know. And so, yeah, I think Jaguar felt like the right decision at the time. But yeah, who knows what would have been the actual decision?
Because we have to remember, NIO locked out the front row in season 3 Hong Kong race 1. So him and Turvey front row. Obviously car wasn't as efficient. He moved to Jaguar. I think he just had enough of NIO at that time, and he said that the Jaguar move was an impulse. It probably wasn't the right decision, and if he didn't go to Jaguar, he'd still be in Formula E now. And you could believe him on that. Maybe he might not be. Who knows? It's just hypothetical thinking. But he said the contract that he had with Jaguar was a bit wishy-washy. So I suppose there was an easy get-out of clause term for Jaguar or him. Like, the contract wasn't solid, if that makes sense. Like it didn't have to run through a whole set of seasons, if that makes sense. That's what I'm assuming from that. That's because he then left after that race in Mexico. So it was sort of an impulse get out. Jaguar at that time, he said, weren't in the best position. So, it probably, for him on reflecting on that, it was probably not the best decision for him to leave NIO and go to Jaguar.
Maybe. I think it was San Diego was the last one, not Mexico, although he crashed in both, so I don't know.
Oh, yeah, you might be
confused. Right. Yeah, but yeah, I guess it's easy to sort of look back in hindsight and say, oh, he might still be in there. I remember Luca Felipe ended up in the seat that Piquet vacated and had a really difficult season, only getting like 1 point in the first race of the season and struggling thereafter. So I'm not sure it's guaranteed that he would have had a better time, especially given how uncompetitive they were. I think he would still have got fed up. And it's interesting because you mentioned the front row lockout at Hong Kong. Quite soon after that, unfortunately, the team principal of NIO, next TV NIO, Martin Leach, unfortunately passed away. And Turvey talked about that in his in the interview with him as a sort of really kind of sad moment where the team sort of really needed cheering up and ended up sort of having to pull together how to get out of that. And it's interesting that sort of Turvey's performances from then on seemed to really improve, whereas Piquet's seemed to tail off a little bit in terms of driving for NIO. So I do wonder if maybe it's something that made Turvey feel more loyal to the team, but maybe for Nelson Piquet Jr., one of the guys who was, running the team when he was winning the World Championship is gone, and maybe that's part of, unfortunately, the reason why he wasn't so keen on staying. And the Jaguar offer came along, maybe the right time for him to be tempted into going for it. And it's a shame in a way that didn't work out because it started off so promisingly too when he got it was like 5th in the championship early in season 4. Well, no, 3rd, wasn't it? It was 3rd.
So for me, the two things that came out of the interview, which I would have liked to, if I was there or if I was doing it, I would have wanted to follow up on, was probably talk about Dr. Martin Leach and see if that had any impact on that decision, because that was what was going on at that time, and why he left Jaguar, because that was sort of left unsaid, basically, because obviously he talked about the wishy-washiness of the contract, but he didn't really explain how he left Jaguar. It was just, you left Jaguar. And
things change, Jack.
Yeah, I know things change, but why? That's why
things just change. That's all you're going to get from it.
So I want to know basically why, he decided to leave Jaguar. What was the situation that came at that point? Was it, a breakdown? Was it the team? Was it him? That was the only sort of thing when I was listening to that part of the interview that I was like, oh, I really want to know what happened there. But apart from that, it was a great interview by Katie Furman, and really appreciate it.